Now today is going to be a super fun, exciting video because we're going to be going over reviewing and analyzing a brand new ETF that is coming out in just a few days. The ETF's ticker is ACKY and it's the Vista Shares Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF. Now before we go any further, I did want to make it clear that Vista Shares is sponsoring today's video, but as always, I'm not being paid to say anything positive or negative or anything specifically at all, but instead just to share with you guys what this new ETF is, how it works, and then later on my personal thoughts on it moving forward. So in today's video, we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to share with you guys an ETF that is coming out in just a few days, and stick around because this ETF is extremely interesting. So if this sort of thing interests you at all, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. Now, Vista Shares is the fund provider of this ETF, the same provider that brought us OMAH, the Vista Shares Target 15 Berkshire Select Income ETF, which I've talked about so many times on my channel and on my X page. OMA is definitely one of my favorite sort of alternative ETFs that offers exposure to specific names that I probably wouldn't otherwise have in my portfolio. And at least so far, OMA has been an amazing ETF for my portfolio. Now, without wasting any time, heading right into the fact sheet for the Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF. Again, this fund is going to start trading in just a few days. The inception date is going to be 9/9/25. Now, the fund description is Vista Shares Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF, or ACKY, seeks to provide core equity exposure through a systematic selection process that mirrors Pershing Square Capital's publicly disclosed holdings. It then says, while seeking to generate high monthly income through an options-based investment strategy targeting 15% annual income distributed monthly, ACKY is not affiliated with Pershing Square Capital or, of course, William Ackman. Now, my initial thoughts on this specific ETF, in case you guys are interested, is the same exact thing I thought about OMA right away. I thought to myself, I always wanted some exposure to Berkshire Hathaway's top holdings, and now I definitely have that because I've been buying shares of OMA consistently, basically every single day since the fund's been trading, which I probably otherwise wouldn't really have exposure to those specific names. Now, if I decide to start buying some shares of ACKY, it's going to be really cool to finally get some exposure to some of the individual names inside Pershing Square Capital, but now through a high income strategy, just like what we've seen with OMA. Now, some of the reasons to consider investment into ACKY: it says seeks high monthly income. ACKY seeks to generate high monthly income by investing in an equity portfolio and implementing a data-driven options investment strategy. Next, it says core equity exposure. ACKY provides full cap range equity exposure that can be considered a portion of the core equity allocation in a well-diversified portfolio. Lastly, it says professional option management, leverage the years of experience and rigorous research process employed by the team managing Vista Shares option-based income ETFs. Now, more information about this ETF. Again, it's going to start trading on 9/9. The distribution frequency is going to be monthly, and the distribution rate, the trailing 12-month, all the different things, of course, are unknown because the ETF at this point is not live trading as of yet. Now, some of the top holdings, and of course, these are subject to change ongoingly, guys. So some of the holdings could be names like Uber, names like Brookfield Corporation, names like Restaurant Brands International, names like Howard Hughes, names like Amazon, Alphabet, Chipotle, Alphabet, Hilton, and Hertz. And again, sort of like I was saying earlier, for me personally at least, I don't really have exposure to many of these names inside my dividend portfolio as of right now. And that's not because I don't want exposure to these names, just because these names, generally speaking, don't really fit the criteria of what I'm looking for, because these are more growth-oriented stocks. But with ETFs like this now that offer exposure to those names, but through a high income strategy, it now does match what I'm looking for inside of my portfolio, which is pretty much the same thing that we saw with OMA. Now, going back over to ACKY's homepage, it says the ETF summary: the Vista Shares Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF offers investors a core equity portfolio that generally mirrors the top publicly disclosed holdings of William Ackman's Pershing Square Capital, a prominent hedge fund, by leveraging the experience of the portfolio management team to seek to generate high monthly income. And again, ACKY is not affiliated with Pershing Square Capital or William Ackman. Now, the ETF objective is also very important, and again, I want you guys to be actively asking yourself, is this something that would interest you or not? And of course, we'd love to see your comments down below, whether it's a yes or whether it's a no. It says the objective is the Vista Shares Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF is an actively managed, exchange-traded fund that takes income and secondarily long-term capital appreciation. So this ETF, again, sort of matches what I'm looking for in my long-term portfolio. That being, I want income generation right from day one, and sort of secondarily capital appreciation is always a bonus, but not necessarily the first thing I'm looking for. It says the fund strategy involves two components. Number one, investing directly or indirectly in a portfolio of equity securities based on the VITA Vista Shares Pershing Square portfolio top picks index, and number two, generating income through an options portfolio. Primarily through the fund's income strategies, the fund seeks to achieve an annual income target of 15% distributed monthly. Now, another thing I actually mentioned on a video as of recent was I like the fact that some ETFs out there have sort of a target yield that they're trying to achieve, because that gives us investors an idea of what we're going to be dealing with moving forward. Even though this target can change, even though this target isn't necessarily guaranteed, it still gives us an idea of what we're working with. Now, a 15% yield is definitely in the high yield range. It's also a yield where, in my opinion, a small amount of money invested offers a potential high amount of income every single month. So that's more or less what the VistaShares Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF ACKY looks like it's going to be. Again, it's going to start trading on 9/9 just in a few days. I'm super excited to see what this one does in the future, and I personally think it has the potential to do some big things. Now, lastly, you guys are probably curious on if or if not I plan on buying some shares of ACKY for my long-term portfolio. As you guys know, I already own a ton of shares of OMA, I own some shares of QUSA, and I definitely will be adding some ACKY to my daily buy list in probably a small dose just to see how it does at first. But this ETF, like I said earlier, does offer some exposure to some individual stocks that I'm definitely interested in having some exposure to, but haven't as of yet because they haven't been offered through a high income strategy like this one. Now, my long-term portfolio, when it comes to higher yielding income-oriented dividend ETFs like ACKY and others, I generally speaking like to hold on to higher yielding ETFs that offer index-based exposure, think S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. But then right after that, I like holding on to different alternative style ETFs like this one that offer a unique strategy and exposure to, say, a basket of holdings. In this case, of course, you're getting exposure to some of the top names in Pershing Square Capital. But even think about names like OMA or think about names like DIVO or QDVO. I consider those sort of alternative high yield ETFs, which I really like holding on to sort of as a secondary ring after my main index-based portion of my portfolio. Now, with that being said, I definitely will be adding some ACKY to my portfolio because it does match what I'm looking for, with my investing criteria being more or less index-based or a diversified basket of underlying holdings along with a high-quality strategy, which I personally think this ETF seems to be offering. But before I go, I do have a question for you guys down below. Now that we went through the VistaShares Target 15 Activist Distribution ETF ACKY, I want to hear your guys' honest thoughts. Would you add this one to your portfolio? Would you not? Let us know your honest thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like in it, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.